All right. So I'm talking this morning, my second part on friendship, and this is a very, very important subject because we're all made for others. Nobody is made for themselves. We're all meant for the privilege of others in our lives that means something to us, and we mean something to them. I haven't got time to go through what happened last week, but I did speak about the fact that there are 7 warning signs to look out for around people that you shouldn't have in your circle, because remember, stupid rubs off on others. But also there are 9 very good signs that people have the fruit of the Holy Spirit. And when you see that in their lives, you feel you can draw closer to them. I want to this morning go a little bit further, and I want to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of friendship. I've had the privilege of living in many cities. I think growing up, I lived in over 30 homes before I turned 17. My folks were always moving, always getting new jobs. I was born in Port Shepstone. We moved to Kimberley. We moved to Joburg. We moved to Durban. We moved back to Joburg. So I went to 6 schools in 12 years, 30 homes. I got to make and have to make new friends all the time. And that hardly made me an expert on friends. But finally, when I got to Johannesburg, my family then moved out of Johannesburg. I have lived in this city. I'm a Vali as it gets. I have lived in this city for more than half my life now. I love this city, and over the years, over the last 20-something years, I've been able to make some very good friends. I know what it's like to experience the loneliness of friends who you think are friends, who do life with you, who are as connected to God as you are, and then somehow they drift off. Things happen, and other interests take them. And you're sitting trying to pursue the hunger in your heart that only God can give you for Him, and you find some that don't get on the same path as you. You find some that do. But when you find friends that are real friends, they're well worth keeping. Now, the thing is, and we're going to talk about this week, what do you look for in friends? What are the kind of things? And then next week, I hope to conclude it with looking at what does it look like to be a friend? Because it's one thing to have friends. It's another thing to actually be someone that other people like. Is that right? Some people are very, very lonely because they're just horrible people. And they've got to learn to stop being so horrible. Got to learn that although things happen to everybody. It's how we open our hearts to Jesus and how we allow Him to change us that determines what our future is going to look like. You cannot allow your past to influence your future. But if you don't make a particular effort, and this morning a word came of, you know that song we sang, "Here's my heart, Lord, here's my heart, Lord." Reality is some people's hearts are open as wide as a door jamb. Where we say, just this far, Lord, you can come in this far. We're too scared to open up as wide as we should. And sometimes people are too scared to open up wide because they don't like what's inside, and they're scared what will happen when God gets in there. The reality is, He knows everything anyway. Is there anyone in this room without a past? Anyone with anything you're not happy about in terms of your past? Right, so we're all in this boat together. Regardless even of your age and your upbringing, we've all had stuff. And stuff can break people. Stuff can break people down. But there comes a time when you have to, with courage, say, Jesus, I present myself to you as I am because I want my future to look nothing like my past. I will not be dictated to by that. I'm going to allow what you do in me to fashion me. Is that fair? So we start off by looking at this, the 3 levels of friendship. Quote by an unknown person: people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. When you know which it is, you will know what to do for that person. I better put this clock on because otherwise I'm just going to keep going today. Somebody once said, friendship is always a sweet responsibility. It's never an opportunity. It's a good idea to develop the skill of having a benchmark of warning lights and welcome signs to help us assess the character of friends and acquaintances around us. The next important stage is to determine or to assess the depth of relationship we have with other people. It's not a weird thing to take an honest assessment of our friendship levels. It helps us be intentional in terms of adjustments we want to make. Taking friends of high character, moving them into our circles. Taking the stupid people and moving them a little bit away from our friendship circles. We're not trying to cast judgment because no matter what a person's character is, they're of infinite worth to the Lord Jesus Christ. Every person. So you don't want to make judgment calls on people, but you do need to be wise around where or how you understand how each person fits into your life. It also helps clarify your expectations. And having reasonable expectations of what you can expect from different levels of friendship, you can then minimize disappointments and you can maximize the energy you're choosing to put into certain friendships. Is that okay? First kind of friends we're all going to have in our lives are circumstantial. Circumstantial friends. Those are the ones you say hello to at the work, the gym, etc. They're mostly very nice people. You're friendly to them, and they're friendly back to you. Does this make them true friends? No, they're just there because of circumstances. Work colleagues, people, you move into a job, you work with people, you move out. These are your circumstantial friends. They're not coming to your funeral, and you're not going to theirs. When your circumstances or theirs change, the friendship ends. They aren't fake, and you're not being insincere when you converse with them. What brought you together was a job, a business connection, a service they provided, but they're not going to come into your friendship circles. They do matter, and we have lots of them. They should feel the effects of our radical love, of our kindness toward them. Those are the people we should be inviting to church regularly, showing them that there's more to life. Don't spread yourself too thin with circumstantial friendships. We only have so much relational currency, all of us. So much relational currency to invest in. Proverbs 12 verse 26 says, a righteous man is cautious in friendship, but the way of the wicked leads him astray. We need to choose friends carefully and leave enough energy to invest in those that are true friends. So circumstantial friends are fine. You're actually there to be a witness to them, to be light to them, to show them what Christ has done inside you. Your biggest witness is to circumstantial friends. Then there's other friends. The next ones are true friends who are friends for a season only. Muhammad Ali said, friendship is not something you learn in school. But if you haven't learned the meaning of friendship, you really haven't learned anything. Many people have been through the experience of having true friends who are part of your life. You do life with them. They mean something to you. You mean something to them. You've been together a few years, and suddenly they make a decision to move, and they're gone. They leave the city you're in. They leave the workplace you're in, and they go somewhere else. And what's left is the occasional mail, the occasional text, the occasional phone call. For some people, this can be devastating. It can cause disillusionment with the idea of friendship. But we need to realize that some true friends are going to be friends for a season only. Almost all of my friends in those growing up years were seasonal. They were the best friends I had at the time, but when my folks made another decision to move somewhere else, it was over. Remember, it was the day before cell phones. You had to write a letter. And you lose touch with people. And I remember once when I'd left Durban and come to Joburg, and I went back to Durban after about 8 months on a holiday to hang with my friends. Things had changed. Their circles had changed. Where I was one of the guys they just loved being around, suddenly I'm an outsider on holiday because their little things have moved on and mine hasn't, and it leaves an empty feeling in your life. But the reality is, some of these friends are a result of the ebb and flow in seasons. There are often events that redefine the friendship dynamic, usually moving. And many of us will invest in these friends, will fully enjoy them, but you shouldn't be surprised if life brings changes to people. Things can change, and it's no one's fault. Ecclesiastes says there's a season for everything. Don't hold it against people that you're investing in who literally have to move away. People who have to move out of your circles. Don't hold it against them. Enjoy what you've got while you have it. Be very careful of the high bars of expectations we put on people. Well, if you were my friend, you wouldn't move. Okay. How does that work? Then the other ones you get that aren't seasonal, and these are few and far between, but we all should have them, are our lifelong friends. Doug Larson wrote, a true friend is one who overlooks your failures and tolerates your success. Because remember, success doesn't usually change you as a person. You are who you are. I once said to a friend of mine, it's interesting how money changes people. And that friend said to me, money doesn't change anybody. Money simply gives them the power to be what they always wanted to be inside. Money doesn't change you, it just lets you release what's already there. Sometimes circumstances and chemistry aligns in such a way that you get a real friend, friends that do last a lifetime. I can think back over 22 years of leading this church with people who started the church with me, who are still with me today, passionately serving God with everything in them. And what holds them together is their devotion to Him and their friendship with me. For obvious reasons, you can't force or manufacture a lifelong friendship. They're forged in the trenches of everyday life. By definition, they take a lifetime to develop. If you invest yourselves fully and freely, You can hold those relationships with open hands, and God Himself will start to allow a certain amount of friendships into our lives that will be with us for the long haul. And sometimes we can be surprised by the friends we make because initially they weren't the kind of people we generally hang with. It's not always true that your friends are the ones you have everything in common with at the start of a friendship. Very often, these common interests grow as you find yourselves on mission together. And these friendships are a treasured blessing and they need to be appreciated. Only time will tell how long certain friendships will continue. So advice is soak up every friendship you have and enjoy every moment with every one of them. Always receive friendship as a gift from God. Squeeze every drop of potential from the opportunities we share together. Let's be thankful for seasons of friendship and ministry that we get to do together. True friendships are actually most often, life-transforming for us. They're gifts to us from God that change us, make us better people. Enjoy them fully, while not exactly planning to sit together on a retirement porch, drinking coffee, drooling, and playing cards. You don't know if you're going to end up in the same old age home. So now you say, well, that's good. I want to move from my sort of occasional circumstantial friends to seasonal friends, and I also want to develop some real lifelong friends. Now, in doing that, one of the things we need to do is we need to prune our relational circles. Because the process of making adjustments to friendship circles is an interesting one. Has anyone ever had success pruning a tree? I mean, a guy tells a story of how him and his wife bought this home. It was a 20-year-old home, so there was a 20-year-old apple tree outside. And it had lots of limbs growing everywhere. The thing had never been pruned. And so this guy went with a hacksaw. And he went to work. Sorry, a chainsaw. He went to work on this tree. His wife looked outside the kitchen window, and she was devastated at the stick thing that was left with more stuff on the bottom than on the top. He just said, be patient, wife. Within a year, there, of course, were nice big red apples on the tree. Air had been allowed to come in. The thing had been allowed some space. Sometimes our friendships need a hacksaw or a chainsaw to be taken to them. Now, we need to be careful in how we choose our friendships. Because if we have friends whose stuff rubs off on us the wrong way, we need to be careful. How does this thing go? Can't you think there are probably a handful of people you would love to spend more time with? And we need to make room for new, healthy friendships that produce fruit. So sometimes we've got to prune our friendships. Sometimes, on the other hand, we just have to expand them. Once you prune and you leave some room for healthy new growth, we need to expand our friendships. We all need friends of high character who rub off on us. You can't just have the same one or two people because you develop a thing eventually called groupthink. And groupthink means that you all think and talk the same way. So when you get perspective from those one or two friends, you already know what they're going to say because they're going to say what you want to hear. That can be very dangerous for you. Friends are real friends because there's a level of honesty that's developed. We need wise friends whose faith is important to them, who want to move forward with God in this adventure called life. My question, of course, is where do you find them? Do you Google the Good Friends page? Do you go on I'llBeYours.com? I have a feeling they're not hanging around at the local pub, sports events, or at Hooters. I think these friends, if they're going to be like-minded Christ followers who are serious about growing in their faith, you need to find them where such people hang out. Where do such people hang out? Where do people of faith meet? Obvious, eh? So, okay, I want to start meeting some friends. What do? How about start attending church more regularly? That's a good start. Join a home group. Be a part of one of the church's ministry or outreach groups. Come to prayer meetings. Make time for the church's social events. We've got rugby next week. Come along. There's a ladies' meeting next week. Start socializing with Christian friends in church, and then you'll meet their friends. Can I just make one thing clear? It's not the church's job to provide you or anyone with a new set of really wise, cool friends who live near you, enjoy all the same interests, and have kids the same age as yours. It's not our job. Is that okay? I've had phone calls from people in this church. I'm so lonely. All I want to do is play you the Roy Orbison song. Only the lonely. The church may provide an environment where you can find these friends. It's your job to take initiative. It's your job to say hello, pitch up, be there, be present. Put a smile on your face. It's your job to take risks as you feel the Holy Spirit leads you towards certain people where there could be an affinity. As you step out in faith, God will provide and God will guide. I do want to say, though, that we don't start a friendship with, what can I get out of? But how can I be a blessing too? Is that right? Now remember, we're modeling something for a world that's broken, fractured relationships. We are the ones who all have a past, who the Spirit of God has done something with, and we are made new today because of who Christ is inside us. We're all broken people getting fixed up. And as we start to develop our faith, and as we start to grow with Christ, we become safe people for others to be around. I spoke last week about how stupid rubs off, and we can all start off with friends who are not good for us. But because we want companionship, we hang around with them. It doesn't take long to realize we don't need these people in our lives anymore. Because although church is full of people who make mistakes, we all have the same book, the Word of God, that guides our behavior and our belief. So when you start developing a relationship, how do you set friendship boundaries? Well, now you've got a group of friends, but you start changing. God starts doing stuff in you. You start developing a hunger for the things of the Spirit. You're not just same old Joe you've always been. Something's changing in you. And now you've got a group of friends. Do you just tell them, well, cheers, thanks so much, but you're all idiots now? No, you don't do that. You start off by trying to bring them along. Maybe you're in a place where you're growing in your relationship with God faster and more sincerely than ever before. God's doing something, you're sparking, and God starts to do something in your lives, and it's not happening to your friends at the rate you would like. What do? You avoid spiritual superiority. You try and bring your close friends along with you on your adventure. I mean, in normal circumstances, how many of us have taken on a new hobby? And the first thing we do, because we enjoy it, is we invite our friends with us. Hey, I've started doing this. Don't you want to come? Why don't you do that in our spiritual walk? When God starts to do stuff in our lives, bring our friends who aren't quite spiritual and say, hey, I'm on this incredible journey. Come with me. Some may not. And if only one or two friends do, thank God for it and go for it. Build with them. If they don't, however, and some are not interested in pursuing a relationship with Christ with you, then let them go. Get alone with God and say, Lord, how do I deal with these people? What is the right way? How do I honestly talk with them? Because you don't want to blow up relationships unnecessarily. It really doesn't help to fire your friends. To go to your non-Christian friends and say, well, I follow Jesus now, you don't, you're fired. Is that right? Because these are the very people who usually scratch their heads and asking, what did they do wrong? Why have they been dumped by you? They didn't change. They're the same people they've always been. They were good enough for you last week. Now today they're not good for you. Now obviously someone you're busy doing drugs with is a good idea to say, dude, I'm not going down that road anymore. But it doesn't mean you flush him. It means you stand in the strength of your new faith. And you say, I'm walking a road and I want you to come with me. But if not, I'd have to let you go. But it's not because I want to. It's because perhaps we need to. Sometimes people see change in you when God gets a hold of your life, and they have a positive experience. Friendships matter. And friendships should never be uprooted or pruned very quickly. If I could go back to the day I got saved, within days, my friends stayed exactly who they were. I had this radical change in me, and we used to drink every day of our lives. I went to my friends and I said, guys, this isn't good for me. I'm going to have to find a new path. I wish I could go back because I'd have done it very differently to how I did do it. Okay, I was 18 years old, studying at university. I became quite radical. I get that. But I do want to say there's other ways that we can treat people. Some friends bolt, some freak out, some say I'm not interested. But stay in touch. You never know later on what influence you may have on the friends that right now may not be good for you. Keep the lines of communication open. Chat with them occasionally. See how they're doing. And then you get other friends you literally just need to say goodbye to. Proverbs 13 verse 20 says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Sometimes you just need to end a relationship because they're not helpful. When stupid is rubbing off on you, it's time to move on. Now, if some of us need to move on, can I just say there's a way to do it? And there's a way not to do it. This is one of the best ways that we should, if you do need to move on from friendships that are not helpful for you. And remember, in our church, we're constantly getting people coming to Christ. This year, we've had over 120 people come to Christ in the first 6 months of the year. It has ramifications on their families and their friends. And they need to be taught, what do you do with this new faith of yours? A couple of you in this room might be thinking, well, I've been saved many years. This has no bearing on me. Well, wait until you lead someone to Christ. And this is a very big issue because they've become close friends with people who don't know Jesus. The way you counsel them will help them to either reach those friends later or not. We can never become so exclusive. Well, I found Christ now. As a matter of fact, and I'll share this shortly, when Jesus called his first disciples to himself, the first thing they did was go get their friends to come and be with them. They didn't dump them. They gave them a chance. But if, however, you have friends that really aren't good for you, don't avoid them. Don't start hiding from them. Don't do things that would make you less than a friend. Just because your life is now switched on doesn't mean you invalidate what you had. There is a way to bow out gracefully without disappearing. Always treat your friends the way you want to be treated, with honor and respect and dignity. Don't be judgmental. Don't make valued judgments about how poor their life choices are now compared to your better ones. It wasn't long ago that you were just like them. I remember the night I got saved. 2 nights before that, I was so fraught, I couldn't even get up on Saturday morning. Literally 2 nights before. So because Jesus had washed me with his blood, doesn't mean I'm suddenly a far superior person to the person who 2 days ago we were sharing a beer together. Our example should speak for itself. Make the right choices in our lives that would rub off on them as they watch us. Choose honesty and grace. If you need to part ways with people, just help them see that you're moving direction under the hand of God. That what worked for you for many years isn't working anymore. Explain the changes you've made. Invite them along with the journey. And if they can't walk with you, then say it's okay. But I value you for who you are. My door's always open. My phone's always on to you. But I want you to know I have to, under conviction, follow my course the same way you're following yours. I'm telling you, they'll respect you for it. I'm pleased to say that I made right with every single one of those 3 close friends of mine. By the end of that year, I got saved in August. By the end of that year, we all made peace. They carried on university. I went to a church's Year of Your Life program. And even today, I've begun to keep in touch with some of them again. And it's the most wonderful thing. Now, how do we learn? Now we want to have friends in our lives. I want us to learn quickly from the relational circles that Jesus put in place. He is our model for how relationships should work. Jesus set a precedent for us. He showed us how we can border our friendships and how we can have healthy, good relationships in church life. And I realize some of us may not have heard stuff preached on this, and some of us just want to hear other Bible texts. But I want to tell you, if you don't have friendships, you're the poorer for it. But I also want to say there's a way to widen friendships that cause us as friends to change. And we never know what's going to happen in our lives where we may need those friends one day. It's good to invest in friends that'll be there for you when you really need them. Jesus had a large circle of friends. In fact, the Bible says that there were at least 72 who were close enough to be called his disciples. That he could send out on ministry trips that he knew well enough to release in his own name. 72. If you were to put down the friends you do life with, could you put 72 down? Jesus could. That he could send out 2 by 2. He mentored them. But among them, he also had 12. That was his small group. For the duration of his ministry on earth, these men moved in and out of his circles. We know at least Peter was married because he had a mother-in-law. Some of them may have been married, some were not. But within this wider group of 72, Jesus had 12. And these 12 were kind of the 12 that did ministry life with him. We all need those friends we do ministry life with. I tell you, churches are so poorer when individuals come to church and leave, but never invest themselves in the church. They never get stuck into any form of helps ministry, service ministry, outreach ministry, where others can do life with them. They come in, they go out. They are very difficult to mentor or disciple. They're very difficult to know where they are and what they're doing. And I'm telling you, most churches have most of their people are those who come into a service and leave, but never invest into the life of that church. The church and them are poorer for it. It's good to have the 12 that you're prepared to do an area of ministry with. And then Jesus, interestingly, had 2 inner circles of friends. 2. The one with those he does his ministry life with. Peter, James, and John. They also wrote, outside of Paul, almost all the books of the New Testament. They were the ones Jesus had with him on the Mount of Transfiguration, when he was changed, and they saw it. They were the ones Jesus took in the garden when he took the 12 with him. On the night he was betrayed, he took those 3 closer. His ministry life, his legacy, his ministry future were dependent on those 3 boys. So he invested in them. Would it have been maybe a bit uncomfortable that there were 72, there were 12, and of the 12, Jesus said to 3, you 3 come up the mountain, you 3 come here, you 9 can't? Is it possible that there was room for people to get their noses out of joint? Yes, most definitely. But Jesus had choices to make around who was going to be good for his life and his ministry later on. And he chose these 3. These 3 carried his heart of hearts for the gospel and the church. I want to suggest to you that when you have 3 or so, whatever it is, people, I'm not saying the numbers are specific, but the idea is you need a handful, a very small handful of people who are as passionate about God and his call as you are. In fact, some of them need to be more passionate than you because they pull you along. I look back and I think to how many of my friends I did life with in the early days, lots of coffees and fun and chats, aren't even serving Jesus today. Or at the most, they just pop in a church. But I have always tried to keep my heart as open as possible, saying, Lord, do something in here. Because if there's something I don't ever want to do, so I don't ever want to fall off before the end. Maybe you're in this room today, and I'm saying to you, you need those 2 or 3 people that you can really, really do life with, ministry life with. They share your passion for Jesus, the church, and the world. Then he had another inner circle, which is very interesting. 3 siblings, remember? Matthew, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Remember them? That lived in Bethany. He had these 3 friends. They were his kitchen table friends. I think they were the people he could sit with over a meal and just relax and just do life with. They weren't the ones who were going to ask him, what did Isaiah mean in chapter 12? Every time he just sat down to relax. I think they were the people who just looked out for him, fed him, nurtured him, cared for him, just loved him. In fact, they only ever needed him once, and that's when one of them died. Then they came running. Outside of that, you don't ever see them putting a demand on Jesus. And can I tell you, you need those friends who do life with you that love the things of God, but also just want to go to the rugby, want to have a braai, want to go on holiday. Friends you just want to do stuff with, who just feed your soul because they're good for you. Who know you warts and all and love you through it. Is that okay? So some of us have those. We have those friends that know us well, but they don't challenge us to the things of God. That's why I say sometimes it's good to have those 2 circles. Jesus demonstrated to us how to do it. And he had different ministry expectations from both of them. He expected Peter, James, and John to go into all the world, preach the gospel, and then die for their faith. He didn't expect that from Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. Different expectations, different people. And if Jesus, the Son of God, had these distinct circles of friends, what does that suggest for you and I today? Have you ever thought of friendship that way? Perhaps the Lord is nudging you to prune some of your friendships. Perhaps he's prompting some of us to get our relational lives back in order. Maybe it's time to redefine some of our current relationships and forge friendships for the road ahead. If that's you and you're saying, okay, I want to develop some friendships now. Some good ones. What do I actually do? Well, thanks for asking. First thing you do is you take small steps. Start with some small steps. Nothing's more weird than beginning a friendship with great big strides. Hi, I'm so-and-so. What's your name? Come on holiday with me. It might not be the best way because you don't know enough about that person just yet. Don't ever camp with someone till you know if they snore or not. That kind of thing. Some people, you try so quickly and realize, actually, I don't like what I see here. How do you get out when you got in quick? How do you get out quick? And then again, you get some friends who are a bit harder to get to know because they close their doors quickly. But they're worth getting to know because there's a depth and a maturity to them that is so useful for your life. God's little gifts to us. Take small steps. Invest time, number 2. Deepening friendships take time. Plan it. Look in your own life and say, where can I find time for these things? You see, people, we're all prone to that the urgent takes time over the important. I meant to. I was saying to my mom when her sister died, it's so much easier in a sense when a loved one has a slow time, then they die, because you've got time to fix things. When someone just goes quickly, there's always unfinished business, hey? If someone close to you passes away, you always think, I wish. We're all going to live with that because of life. You can't take the 72 favorite friends of yours, stick them in a hotel, and you sit together looking at each other 24 hours a day in case one of you dies. You can't do it. We're all going to live with an aftermath. But try and remember that the important sometimes must take precedence to the urgent. Number 3, start to create shared experiences. I'm telling you, coffee is a gift from God. Hey? Good coffee, obviously. I don't believe good friends give each other Frisco. No, listen, I'm going to come across as a snob. I had a friend, listen to this, who had more money than I'm ever going to have. Okay? And he liked coffee ice. I said to him, this isn't coffee, it's flavored sand. Do you know he could afford to buy coffee shops, but he enjoyed his coffee ice. But because he's a friend, he never gave it to me. But coffee is a gift from God, as is food. They provide us opportunities for conversation, which is the foundation for getting to know someone better, just to start sharing. It doesn't take long for casual get-togethers to start cementing some level of friendship. You normally discover common causes and you can develop them together. So create some shared experiences. Number 4, a tennis and volleyball term, wait for the volley. It means if you're doing all the initiative in a friendship, wait for the other person to also initiate something. Don't always keep it a one-way friendship where you're hitting the ball over the net the whole time and the person just watches all the balls go past. That's not tennis. I don't know what that's called. Unless you're playing with Robert, because he can't hit a ball back. I had a friend of mine who was such a good tennis player, represented his school at every level, and we went around a ministry trip somewhere, and he took Robert on in a game. And Robert beat him, I think, 6-love or 6-2. This German knows his game. Be careful around him. Number 5, have the courage to take off your mask. Once you've taken baby steps in your friendship, you can take off your mask. It means having the courage with a real friend to start to talk about what's really going on inside you. Perhaps start with a small truth about yourself with someone and see what they do with it. If you find it on Facebook, they might not be your close friends of the future. But sometimes you can trust a friend with a small truth you haven't shared with someone else, and the way they handle that truth shows you what they really think about you. It doesn't always work to have people in your life who want you to do the sharing and they don't want to share with you. If people can keep your confidence, if they reveal things of significance, it's a wonderful thing. There is actually a place for people where it's all one-way sharing. It's called a counselor's office at 800 Rand an hour. Go there. Outside of that, Friendships are reciprocal. Number 6, how do you develop real friendships? If and when a crisis develops in someone's life, be there. You can't plan a crisis for your life or your friend, but if it arises, show up. It's amazing how many friendships are deepest forged in times of pain and fire. How in those moments when you really need them there, they're there. I tell you, if you know how to develop friendships where friends experience pain, just be there for them. Don't wait to be asked. Sometimes our friends just don't even have the emotional energy to ask us to help them. And that's not a qualification to say, well, I didn't help because you didn't ask. Sometimes people can't ask. You've got to trust God to show you when your friends may need a bit of help. So you can just be there for them. Show up in thoughtful ways. I want to be honest. In this time we've had with Hensia and I, it's our friends who've carried us through. Time, food, assistance, little thoughtful ways where friends show up. And sometimes you can show up without having all the answers. Just being there. Just knowing you care is enough. If you're the one in the pain, allow your friends to walk alongside you. Please, what most people do in times of trial is they close up. They isolate themselves. And the Bible says the devil is prowling like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. My brother and his business partner own an incredible game reserve, and I've watched many times when a lion takes a kill. And what they normally do is they crouch. They take a weak one, always a weak one. And they crouch, and then one lion stands up and makes a scene, and they all bolt the other way, which is where the others are waiting, downwind. The enemy's ways have never changed. And remember, his plan in every single circumstance is to kill, steal, and destroy. So what he will do is he will isolate you, get you to close off. And at that time, you've got to remember, friends are a gift from God. As painful as it is, at the very least, I just need to keep my hands and my heart open. And if you are that friend, draw near and say, this is the time you need me. I want to be here for you. Is that okay? Great. Won't you stand with me, please?